I'll continue. I'll continue to say I've been praying a lot, talking to my family, but with the love of my family, with the support of his staff. I know I'm a hard worker. I learned that from Lindsay. He cared about the people of this state. I've worked for almost 30 years for the people of this state.
I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
I feel like I can do it. I feel an inner peace about it. Will it be difficult? Yes, absolutely.
So you're inclined to get in, or have you even made a final decision?
I've made a decision.
You're in.
I'm in. I'll continue to say I've been praying a lot, talking to my family.
We're just going to have you guys stay in the office. I kind of walk out.
Turning now to the defense request.
We're just going to have you guys stay in the office. I kind of walk out.
$5 trillion.
Stop bombing our children
Mr. Secretary, please suspend until order is restored in the hearing room. We will begin the timing clock since you've been interrupted twice.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
1.5 trillion is what the president seeks and what we need to defend the country. The members of this committee understand better than most that long-term strategic dominance cannot be funded through one-off supplementals.
Veterans, call for end to this war right now.
Trump and Dorsey is one Senate primaries of non-elected incumbents. So we're not just looking at elected incumbents, right? We're looking at open seats or appointed incumbents who have never actually won the Senate seat. Look at this. Since 2022, it's about 95% of the time. This year, in fewer races, it's 100% of the time. No wonder why the prediction markets and the conventional wisdom have moved so rapidly once Trump made that endorsement, because at least in Senate races, Trump's record this year, 100%, and since 2022, nearly 100%. There has never been somebody I have seen as powerful in terms of their ability to move the electorate in primaries than the current president of the United States, Donald John Trump.
What's one reason for that?
One reason why is because Trump is still very popular with Republicans. Just take a look here. Okay, 21st century own party approval rating, about at this point in the second term. We got Trump, we got Obama, we got Bush. Look, they're all fairly popular, but the one who is the most popular, and we have seen this time in and time out, no matter when you look, is Donald John Trump. He's the only one who's over 80%. 83% of Republicans still approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president. He still has that magic touch. We'll see if it carries over to South Carolina, but we've seen it in primaries this year, Senate primaries, and that's because he is still a very popular man, historically popular when it comes to his own party liking and approving of the job that he's doing.
So was Marquette asked a really
Pulte as the acting director of national intelligence. There's been a little bit of a pushback from some Senate Republicans. Why do you think, Mr. President, he's the best person for the job?
Well, he's very smart. He's a person who's got high integrity. He's done a phenomenal job at Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. You probably have $1 trillion in value there. When he took over, it was much less. And I guess I'm responsible for that too, because everybody wanted me to sell it in my first term for 10% of what it's worth right now. If I would have sold it, we would have lost $900 billion. We would have lost, I mean, think of it, it's probably worth $1 trillion. And I was offered, people want me to sell it at $100 billion, a very small percentage of what it's worth now. So, and he built it up a lot, did a great job. And it's an acting position. It's not a permanent. He's not going to be permanent because, I don't think he'd want to be permanent. But he's a very smart guy, and he may find out some things about the rigged elections, et cetera, et cetera. I think he'd like to do it. I think he wants to do it very much. He's got a lot of energy. But he'll be very good. Again, it's not a permanent position. Right. We're interviewing people right now, but it's somebody just to take it over for a little while.
Does he have the necessary, in your view, Mr. President, the necessary national security experience to take on that position?
Well, I do, and I think he does, actually, because he's smart. Because a lot of national security, I wasn't greatly experienced in national security, and I think I've done a really great job with it. A lot of people would say that I've ended 8 wars, and soon to be a 9th. I hope that works out too. Frankly, but.
Senator Fetterman has indicated that if Democrats officially become anti-Israel, he would leave the party Have you had any conversations with him about maybe joining the GOP conference, and would you welcome him if he were to offer that?
Yes, we would welcome him. I haven't talked to him recently. I have had conversations with him in the past, as have many of my colleagues, about the challenges he faces in his caucus. And, you know, there are many of us who I think would welcome the opportunity to have him join the Republican conference. But, you know, ultimately that's a decision that's up to him. And as Senator Barrasso pointed out in his remarks, I mean, this is a party that's moving further and further, more radically, and to the more extreme left on a lot of issues. And I think people like John Fetterman, who have views that probably reflect a more moderate, or at least historically moderate, Democrat position, are really kind of people without a home. So if he ever comes to the conclusion that he's ready to move, we would certainly welcome it. Thank you.
Were asked if they wanted to register to vote. In the case of this error, some individuals indicated that they weren't citizens and weren't eligible to vote, but the software registered them anyway. The error in the software was corrected a year later in June of 2024. That is more than 2 years ago. I learned of this last Wednesday, and I immediately ordered my chief counsel to launch a comprehensive investigation. Currently, the Division of Elections is working to ensure anyone who is illegally registered is removed or asked
that thousands of non-citizens were added to New Jersey's voter rolls, and some even voted because of a computer glitch. But now the state says it's trying to clean that up. New Jersey's Governor Mikey Sherrill says that a software error in the state's motor vehicle system led to about 6,600 people who are not citizens being registered as Garden State voters when they applied for a driver's license. She says even though the applicants answered no on the license and also state ID card application forms, well, the computer registered yes as citizens. She says it all happened under the previous administration of Democratic Governor Phil Murphy, and she's ordered the illegal voters be removed from the rolls.
It's unacceptable that the vendor released software with such a glaring error. It's unacceptable that the MVC took a year to get this issue fixed. And it's unacceptable that no one in the previous administration brought this to light, demanded accountability, or took action when it happened years ago.
Well, the investigation says found less than 400 of those who were improperly registered actually did vote. And of those 400, they were registered in all the parties. They were Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated voters. They were registered over a one-year period from June 2023 to 24. And elections held during that time, well, they included the state legislature, municipal contests, school board elections in 2023, as well as in 2024, the U.S. Senate, congressional races, and the presidential election, which Kamala Harris won by more than 250,000 votes. And Sherrill herself was elected as governor last year, and she won by nearly 500,000 votes. Jillian, back to you.
It's just weird, Eric, because I never heard of anything going wrong at the DMV before. Thanks for those details, Sandra.
look, Arizona is a hot mess. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been there on the ground in a couple of cycles there, and that is why the United States Department of Justice is sending nearly 24 election monitors there tomorrow for their primary, and I'm proud to say that they're welcoming and cooperating with us. But it's been a hotbed of problems over there, particularly with their system of printing the ballots. Maybe the paper is wrong. They don't have chain of custody. Entire counties have had failures in their elections. This happened in Apache County in the 2024 election, where I was in charge of that for President Trump. So I think it's important that people go to the polls. I want every American to vote, regardless of party. And I want them to feel confident in the outcome. And we just can't have that when we have 2/3 of the states refusing to cooperate with the Department of Justice's efforts to get the voter rolls so that we can help clean them up. In the states that are cooperating with us, or where we can get the commercially available data, Department of Homeland Security has found almost 300,000 non-citizens on the voter rolls. And I'm pushing U.S. attorneys' offices and coordinating with them to prosecute some of these cases. And I'm hearing them from all over the country. So this is a real problem, and no American's vote should be canceled out by duplicate, illegal, or worse, foreign interference in our elections. So we're here to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% right. I mean, what's going on right now is just absolutely mind-blowing that they won't even turn over the voter data to make sure that it's good. But I want to get to Harvard real quick, okay?
Learned that the Department of State issued some now publicly available declassified material that shows that there are $630 million of earmarked contributions from Chinese sources to Harvard, and that's in addition to several billion from other countries as well. But they're earmarked for Chinese recipients, not Chinese American, not American, but Chinese recipients. And so that's problematic under Title VI. So we've launched an investigation today to see the extent to which there are violations of federal law. Harvard cannot take our federal tax dollars, which, by the way, it has trillions of dollars of outstanding grants, billions a year, and then also discriminate against Americans. All the money that flows into Harvard from foreign sources must be made available to all without regard to national origin. So this is going to be an examination at Harvard, and you should stay tuned. There'll be some for some of the other top institutions that are taking this foreign money as well. We learned that the Department of State issued. This is going to be an examination at Harvard, and you should stay tuned. There'll be some for some of the other top institutions that are taking this foreign.
Mr. Attorney General, any reason you're up here today? Taking some meetings? Any thoughts on President Trump's recent comments about election integrity?
Please. Get the camera out of my face, would you?
Mr. Attorney General, any reason you're up here today? Taking some meetings? Any thoughts on President Trump's recent comments about election integrity?
Please. Get the camera out of my face, would you?
He needs to. What's the problem?
Why do you let those kids get away with this? They are not supposed to be here!
If you don't lower your voice, I am going to put handcuffs on you and I'm going to take you to a Baker Act facility. You lower your voice.
Try it.
Are you threatening me? Can we get another unit to deal with Jay Lee here? He is having a breakdown. What do you say?
7351.
Get down on the ground right now.
No!
You're about to get sprayed.
No!
Get down on the ground right now.
Leave me alone!
I can come in there.
Leave me alone, please!
Okay, are you going to calm down?
I want to be away from him.
It's too late now. It's too late now. He's going to be taken away.
Bailey. You need to stop. Stop.
It's taken.
I just want to get away from him. I understand that.
He needs to.
Stop! Miss tickling me! Just say she!
Alpha 73.
Please step in. Watch your head.
Do not push me.
Iran's been given every opportunity to negotiate. Iran's been given every opportunity to negotiate, to show that they're reasonable on the Strait of Hormuz. But if they're going to shoot at commercial shipping, then we're going to hit them, as the president said, 10 times harder, which every night we're degrading them further and further. And the president has all the options necessary. If they want to talk, they can talk. Otherwise, they can deal with the War Department, and we're prepared to do that. Iran's been given every opportunity to negotiate. As you know, we live in a dangerous world that requires bold and swift action. Hence, this supplemental request for fiscal year 2026. This request is an urgent, necessary injection of resources to address the immediate needs of our department. As you know, we live in a dangerous world that requires bold and swift action. Hence, this supplemental request for fiscal year 2026. This request is an urgent, necessary injection of resources to address the immediate needs of our department. As you know, we live in a dangerous world that requires bold and swift action. Hence, this supplemental request for fiscal year 2026. This request is an urgent, necessary injection of resources to address the immediate needs of
I'd like to begin by expressing my deep condolences and that of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the SEAC for the fallen from this past weekend and their families. Today, we remember First Lieutenant Tyler Feehan, Sergeant Michael Swinton, and Private Isabel Gonzalez, and note that the names of our last fallen will be released when we can. I'm humbled daily by the profound commitment of the incredible 2.8 million Americans, just like these names that I've just mentioned, who make up our joint force and serve our nation every day. I'd like to begin by expressing my
President Trump's following a simple logic. The military requires a generational investment to deliver on peace through strength. We know the best way to create peace is to prepare for war, to deter it. And that's exactly what the Department of War is doing, building a force so capable that it would be absurd for anyone to challenge it. As the direct result of neglected priorities and gross negligence that ignored threats left over from the previous administration, President Trump inherited a set of global and domestic crises, deferred maintenance, almost social experiments, and a set of global and domestic and gross negligence that ignored threats left over from the previous administration. President Trump inherited a set of global and domestic crises, deferred maintenance almost across the board. Instead of steering the ship through gathering storms, former leaders let our military languish through social experiments and globalist appeasement, sheer weakness. Under President Trump, we have built a different type of department. The Pentagon is no longer run by bureaucrats. Instead, it's led by combat-tested veterans and world-class business leaders who are running the department like a business, and tech titans who are bringing lethal innovation to the battlefield. We're also at a different moment, and we cannot afford inaction. If we don't make critical investments right now in tech, in compute, in AI, in autonomy, in space, our adversaries who are already making these types of investments could outpace us.
6. God damn it! I'm on the tree line bomb!
Big News 6, Roger, 013, stand by.
As you know,
I've come today to ask for your help and your support. America's armed forces need $1.5 trillion to meet the military challenges of the future. This supplemental is a part of that, and to be allowed to use this capital to pay for military personnel, operations, and maintenance expenses, and accelerate investments on critical technologies, as the Secretary just mentioned. It is critical that we stay ahead of our adversaries, and we must have the funds before we're out of time. I've come
That's Kids Online COSA. It's KOSA.
Yeah.
They're supposed to protect minors on social media. It requires tech platforms to implement safeguards against harms like cyberbullying, eating disorders. Come on.
So what are your thoughts? Okay, here I've got a little bit of
protecting people from bullying, cyberbullying. I think that would be a pretty decent law because that's the real thing going on. With like a lot of people, you know, dog teaming people on the internet.
Yeah.
And then they shouldn't be doing that to children. Like they shouldn't be harassing and cyberbullying children.
Of course. I'm going to guess maybe you also were bullied as a child like I was. So I've got a little bit. Margie sent a little bit.
All right, everyone. So I'm outside of George Washington University Hospital, the ER entrance here. We've got Capitol Police detail over here. I have not seen this vehicle yet. Anyhow, we're going to walk around and see if Senator Mitch McConnell's security detail is still parked outside of the hospital here, because if they are, that means that he's now in day 38 of the hospitalization. So swing around here, see what we have. Here's the hospital logo. All right, hopefully he's been discharged, and it doesn't look like it. Can't believe I have to keep coming here. So his Capitol Police detail is still here, day 38, for a fall and mild pneumonia.
In terms of illegal immigrants, you got 12,462 entered the country on January 1st. On January 1st, the GDP was, they were spending 2.4% of their defense spending, of their GDP on defense. They were supposed to get to 5%, and heating oil prices are up 42%. And the thing is, you're not making a change. You're actually bringing more extreme left, and in no election until 2029.
Well, exactly. 3 more years of this, if he wants it, if he can get there. You're totally right. Prices, affordability, as it is in America, has been a massive issue in the United Kingdom. Our energy prices are pretty much out of control back there. I think we're about to hear from Andy Burnham any moment now, but expect to hear lots of doing things differently. He talks about 40 years of consensus, neoliberal consensus, needing to be unpicked. He slags off Margaret Thatcher all the time. This is a guy who sat in Tony Blair's government. He used to be an uber Blairite, as we call them, a kind of, moderate centrist member of the Labour Party. He's been on a bit of a journey. Whether people will buy it or not remains to be seen, but expect him to be trying to bury his predecessors. But we've heard it all before, essentially.
Well, tell me about his family. We're watching video of his wife. They had just gotten out of the car and they're shaking hands with people in the crowd. I think they have 3 children, right?
That's correct. His wife is, I don't think we'll be seeing as much as her as previous Prime Minister's spouses. A lot of the briefing we're hearing is that she was, a strong independent woman, wants to continue with her own life. Andy Burnham himself has said he's going to be spending a lot of time in this new Number 10 North. He wants to build a sort of remote outpost for Number 10 up in Manchester. He's saying he's going to be spending. He wanted to live there, but the security services pointed out that that's actually not particularly feasible when you are the
My name is Dean Anina, and
I'm running for the state assembly to be Republicans' worst nightmare. A transgender woman who lives in poverty wants to legalize weed and thinks everybody deserves affordable housing and health care. Yikes. I'm the exact opposite of what you typically get in that building. My name is Dina Nina, and I'm
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this visit for a long time.
Thank you.
There are a lot of people in America who feel that there are a lot of people who feel that the Democratic Party is out of touch. We can't be honest about what's going on, with immigration. We don't have a plan for immigration. We're not able to say what actually Democrats should do to fix the problem. All we are is opposition to Trump. Under Biden, we said inflation is not really a big deal. It's transitory. It's going to go away. And then the whole party said, hey, don't worry. Everything's great. Joe is awesome. He can run for re-election. So the point is we have this history of kind of just like washing over problems and not addressing real concerns that voters have. We got to make sure we don't do that.
Okay, but we've got to make sure. Do you think you're doing that now? Because look no further than a state just north of you, Maine, where I kind of feel like that happened 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think that's honest. I mean, to be honest, it's a problem. It's still a problem. There are a lot of people in America who feel
without getting into the investigation, the protocols require consultation with the Department of Justice in Washington, and we followed the protocols.
And did anybody in Washington, D.C., suggest to you or anybody on your team that you should issue subpoenas in this case? Following the AP reporting, reporting of the president coming back on an airplane that was unsuitable for the protection and the defense of the president of the United States.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the details. What I can tell you is that we followed those procedures, and those procedures, for the reasons that I believe firmly and you believe protecting the freedom of the press, being the least intrusive possible, require consultation.
And I would say, Mr. Chairman, I know my time is up, but the reason this is relevant to, I think, a lot of us, or certainly to me, is that this question of being able to speak truth to power, in the context of Intel,
I want to show you this billboard that's down in Mexico. There's several of these. It says payment plans to have a baby in Texas, natural or C-section. It's even got a website, HaveMyBabyInTexas.com. I doubt that's what the framers had in mind when they were writing the 14th Amendment. Take us through what's going on here.
Yeah, so a couple of months ago, we actually sued a birthing center in Houston that was advertising in China to get people to come into the country to have babies, to get women to come into the country to have babies, and then send them back out. And I think you hit it right on the nail on the head by saying they're here to vote someday and potentially to run for public office after being trained in communist China. So the governor just discovered some of these. We're going to look into those as well. We already have some success in suing these entities, but it's a problem in Texas. And I understand the Supreme Court's decision. And as much like you, I didn't like it much.
Have you seen, we've seen reporting that indicates that the Chinese government might, in some cases, be paying for this. Have you seen that? Meaning that when these kids grow up, they're then indebted to the Chinese Communist government, and they have to do basically whatever they tell them to do, who to vote for.
Yeah, we're still in the middle of our litigation, so I don't know the answers to all those questions, but we may find the answers as we go through the litigation. But I am certain this is going on. Why wouldn't the Chinese Communist Party do that? Why wouldn't they, if they can infiltrate the country by just having people come over here for a few $1,000s, have a baby, go back and train them in China, and then set them up not just for voting, but for running for office, for running our country? What better way to infiltrate the country? And it's a long-term plan, but it starts after 18, 20, 25, 30 years, it's a deal.
Exactly. I thought this would be a no-brainer at the Supreme Court. It wasn't, but it makes sense. Create an army of Chinese voters who can vote by mail from China and swing U.S. elections. Think about Trump and Kamala, separated by a couple million votes. There are your votes right there if you wanted Kamala to win that election. It's that serious.
And so let me tell you, I used to be the congressperson for the 5th Congressional District. And when I decided to leave that job and become your Attorney General, and thank you for that, by the way, I worried, are we going to have somebody who is absolutely take no shit from anybody get into that job? Are we going to have somebody who if Thank you. You know what? Let us. else? You, come on, guys. Okay, I got you, brother. We're going to let them have their moment. Thank you, guys. Hey, look, let me tell you, I believe in freedom of expression, so let's give it a hand for our friends over there. They get to be a part of it, too. Now, no shit from anybody get into Thank you. Thank you. Hey, look, let me tell you, I believe in freedom of expression, so let's give it a hand for our friends over there. They get to be a part of it, too.
This was a scandal during This was a scandal during the Obama USAID era. Now, we were running a number of rogue USAID operations in Cuba at the time. By the way, I have to say for the record, I'm no fan of the Cuban government. I'm not even weighing in on whether it's the right or wrong thing to do, in terms of regime change there or, liberating people there from autocratic excess by that government. I'm simply showing the American people where your tax dollars are going and how these things are structured in order to systematically fool you and to fool Congress and to fool the White House. So, for example, this is, and I'll show a couple other things in a second here. But so this is Zunzuneo. So you just scroll for a second, we'll start with this, right? So it was an online social media. Just scroll up 1 second. We'll start at the top here. It was an online social networking microblogging service created by USAID and marketed to Cuban users. This was a Twitter knockoff. See, the background of this is 2009, 2014, that period, the State Department and USAID were gangbusters gung-ho on the promise of Arab Spring-style social media revolutions to topple other governments. The Arab Spring was a Facebook revolution and a Twitter revolution. USAID pumped $1.2 billion in, and we sponsored these activist groups and these civil society organizations to learn how to use Facebook, learn how to use Twitter, learn how to use hashtags, learn how to coordinate street protests so that everyone knows where to go, what street to show up on, what kind of slogans to use in order to create the pro-democracy predicate for it. But the problem was, at the time, Cuba did not allow U.S. social media in. So they said, so they're not allowing Twitter in. How can we get a Twitter there, but without calling it Twitter, without making it look like it's coming from the U.S.? So what they did is they took the exact same thing as Twitter. Same user interface, same like and retweet button. Zunzunillo is the Cuban slang word for hummingbird. So it means it's bird. It was the Twitter bird, the whole thing. But the whole trick about it was you have to make it look like it's coming from the Cubans if you're going to do this operation. So what you'll see is it began running. So this is 2010. This is right during the Arab Spring. And what you'll see is they took funds, millions of dollars of funds, that were concealed as humanitarian funds designated for Pakistan. Now, I don't know if Joe or the audience, if you've looked at a map lately, but Pakistan is not exactly the next door neighbor of Cuba. Right. So, and this is the Wikipedia whitewashing, and we can get into the deeper layers of this, but contractors funded by USAID, I should note the main contractor was Creative Associates International, who's a frequent one. It's CAI, not CIA, I promise. So they concealed in the budget from Senate, from Congress, from the White House National Security Council. They said that these were humanitarian funds for Pakistan. And then they ran that to their contractor, CAI, to, quote, set up a Byzantine system of front companies using Cayman Islands bank accounts and recruiting unsuspecting business executives who would not be told of the company's ties to the U.S. government, according to the AP. The private companies like Creative Associates International designed the network. The idea arose after they were given 500,000 stolen Cuban cell phones that were available on the black market. And then what you'll see if you scroll down is okay, the network, dubbed the Cuban Twitter, reached about 60,000 Cuban subscribers. The initiative appears to also have had a surveillance dimension, allowing a, quote, vast database of Cuban Zunzunillo subscribers, including gender, age, and receptiveness and political tendencies to be built, with the Associated Press noting such data could be used in the future for political purposes. By the way, these are all quotes from the internal documents, and we can go through that. The data would then be used for micro-targeting efforts towards anti- and pro-government users in Cuba. The developers aimed to, at first, use non-controversial content, such as sports and music, and hurricane updates, by the way. They used hurricane updates in the internal things. Basically a humanitarian front that if you sign up to this app, you'll know about natural disasters in the area. Meanwhile, what was the plan the whole time? Once they built up enough subscribers, they would begin to introduce political messages through social bots and encourage dissent in this astroturfing. There's a great Guardian write-up on this. If you go to
Hey, what's your name, bro? You have family here? You have your phone?
Yeah.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a busy week here in the United States Senate, and I would say that there is no shortage of opportunities for bipartisan legislating in the weeks ahead. There are a number of things that we can do, one of which would be a market structure bill. That's something that's a candidate for consideration. The Lindsey Graham sanctioning Russia legislation is also something that's being worked on and is something I hope we can get the necessary support to get to the floor. And then obviously a defense authorization bill, which was voted down on the motion to proceed last week by the Democrats, is something that also normally is a bipartisan piece of legislation. But none of those things get done if the Democrats continue their posture of trying to block even getting on legislation. And again, I use the defense authorization bill as an example of something that we've done for 65 years in a row, which last week the Democrats decided, even though not many of them, but a number of them had voted for the legislation when it came out of the Armed Services Committee, decided to block its consideration on the floor. So that's something that ought to be able to get done. And then obviously the most important thing that we need to do is to fund the government. And on that front, Chair Susan Collins is working with Democrats on the Appropriations Committee to find a path forward to have a continuing resolution to keep the government funded to get past the November elections so that we don't have the specter of a government shutdown, something that happened a couple of times this last year. And the disruption, the chaos that creates is just something that both sides ought to be willing to try and avoid. And so I think it's going to be really important that we figure out a path forward to get a bipartisan agreement to fund the government that will keep government open and ensure that government employees are getting paid. And that is something that I intend to bring to the floor for a vote before the August break.
Back there.
Yes, I want to ask about the tariffs that were announced on $20 billion in Canadian exports, plywood, electrical switchgear, things that will make life more expensive here. Does Congress have any avenue to try and stop these tariffs or others?
We have had several votes on these tariffs, and I believe the less recent Canadian tariffs. We need our Republican colleagues to join us. These tariffs hurt the American people. I believe it's estimated that the average American family pays $1,700 more out of their pockets because of them, and they're done in certain tariffs are okay, but they're done in a willy-nilly way without regard to how they affect the American people. Yes, Hill. Back there.
Yes, I want to ask about the
So Trump and Rubio declared this war over in April, in May, in June. They were wrong every time. More than 500 American troops have been injured in just the past few weeks, and nearly 100 of those have been withheld from Americans by the Pentagon. Information about 100 of them have been withheld.